right, guys, welcome to the weirdest podcast we've ever done. And this is how busy we are. We're doing a free play podcast on the road. And as I'm at the wheel, you might notice I'm not looking at the person I'm speaking to or at the camera, just the road for safety. But we've kind of overburdened ourselves, and I procrastinated on a pretty major thing I have to do, which is go to every location and take pictures for the TABC, who regulates the alcohol here in the state of Texas.
And it has to be done by the end of the year, and it's 2 days until Christmas.
So we're 2 days until Christmas, and we're going to try to knock it out all today. So we're going to visit every arcade today. We actually already went to Richardson. We'll see if we're able to tag that in at the end. But first up, we're going to hit up Arlington, then Fort Worth, then Denton. The reason Denton's last today, they're desperately trying to put up right now a sign that we had custom made for this really, really old sign that's in front of the building that eventually the city said either put something in there or tear it down. And we thought, hey, let's try to put something in it. So they're desperately trying to get that done before we arrive. I don't know if they'll make it, but we'll see. But our first podcast topic, which is going to be like super, super irritating to Kelsie, is, so historically, there have been a lot of arcade games that are kind of known as chick games, girl games, which sounds pretty offensive just off the bat. But I think it has an interesting history, right? So the very first arcade games come out, and to the extent you can tell that the protagonists are men, they're all men. And then, Kelsie, do you know the game that like changed the world?
I don't know. What game did change
Miss
the world?
Pac-Man.
Miss Pac-Man, okay.
Yeah, so Miss Pac-Man comes out, and they make the protagonist a girl.
That is the one I used to play when I was a kid.
And now it's kind of weird because everyone talks about how that was the genius move that made Miss Pac-Man the greatest, like early 80s arcade game of all time. And it out-earned everything times a million because both men and women were now comfortable playing it. Now, the counterpoint, and I bet Chris back there would agree with me, is it's just a great game.
The best.
It wouldn't matter what you called the protagonist. It would have always been one of the highest earning and best games. Wow, we've got like some heavy equipment crossing the street right in front of us. So that was what kind of, though, it made developers start trying to figure out this female market to market to, which makes everyone very upset when we say it like that. Now, I will say, as like a statistician and as someone who really, really likes data, I have watched now arcades operate for years and years and years, and there are some games that seem to be favored by females. And it was really funny because I was going through a thread today, and Kelsie's been really, really big on a game called Pingo for the last little bit.
It's not a super popular game, but it's really fun.
Right. It's not super, well, that's the thing. It's pretty obscure. Not the most popular game. It's actually one of my favorites too. But Kelsie's been really, really into it, and it appeared today on this weird list that's totally like not accurate and shouldn't even exist, of games for women that any arcade operator should know. It's from a publication back in the 80s, and it was every arcade operator needs to know these games for women. Miss Pac was number 1, and Pingo was number 2. And I thought it was really funny because I knew it would irritate Kelsie a ton to find out that her favorite current game is like number 2 on the games for women. But in general, I have noticed, and I don't know why, that girls tend to prefer games that are like super, super simple but nuanced, and like that they can play over and over and over. And that guys are the only ones that'll put up with the complicated rule set games. Now, I'm not saying that that's like...
Like, what's a complicated rule set game?
Well, I will say that I've never seen... Now, most people don't stick it out either. Defender, for example. I've never seen... And there's definitely going to be people that are watching on YouTube. They're like, yo, like, you know, I play Defender. I'm a girl. Fuck you. Darn it. Should have said that. We'll bleep that in post. But that's kind of what I've noticed, is that like the only hardcore Defender players and the only serious Defender players, or the only people that even like that game, seem to be middle-aged white dudes.
Okay, but hold on. There's so many things that you've just said that I don't even know how to like back up
We have
on.
to
But
unpack.
number one, is it not fair like to say that there are way more or less hardcore female people, period, that are super
into our style
to
games?
the high level score-setting, record-breaking type of like.
Well, and that's it. It has always made me uncomfortable because it is kind of like a unicorn type situation. When there's a girl that's good at an arcade game, especially one of these obscure older games, it becomes like this unicorn where everyone comes and is like, "What is going on? This is so special."
Right, Lauren Featherstone.
Like
with Tapper.
Lauren Featherstone, for example, when she was mid-20s, low 20s, setting a world record on a game that's much older than her. She's, in the newspaper, on the front page of the guide section of the newspaper. Whereas her record's now been broken, and no one at all has spoken about that guy ever.
Well, to be fair, she kind of came up with the strategy.
It's true. She pushed the gameplay a lot forward. Everyone started using her skills and strategies that they watched on her stream, which is kind of like, I'm sure Billy Mitchell's very upset that he has to put his stuff on camera for many reasons, but that was always his arguments, like, against why he didn't want it filmed as much, because he would teach people how he did it, and then anyone could do it. Like, you didn't have to learn the game.
Not entirely wrong.
I don't even disagree that much with that, but we've learned that referees are all fake and fraudulent, so you can't trust anyone to self-report or to have a referee in-person report. No one's ever made. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter if it's video games, sports, FIFA. Everyone's cheating, and it's all like, how good are you at cheating? But
it's really depressing.
Right. Well, it just seems to be how it is. I mean, Russia just got banned for like 2 years from all international sports because they are so like known as cheaters and have been caught so many times.
Right. But I mean, it doesn't have to be that way.
All right, it doesn't have to be, but that's
I feel like the future could eventually evolve to.
And that's why I think Chris would agree with this. High scores don't matter except against yourself. You're the only person you can trust.
Yourself or someone you care about. You can have a rivalry.
Chris Delp says you can have a rivalry,
This
too.
is okay.
As long as you trust that person to not cheat. Which I don't know. To me, as like a person that's been on this world for a few years, I don't even think you should do that.
Well,
how can you trust anyone?
I agree with that sentiment, though, because that's my style of game playing anyway.
Right.
I will never care or have the time to commit to being a record-breaking run on anything. But I do like to do better every time I play, and that's like the most rewarding thing. But back to this man-woman
Right,
thing.
yeah. Well, it just feels really icky to talk about, right?
It does feel icky, and I reject this. There's absolutely no reason that anything is inherently more appealing to men and women, but as a parent, I've been like kind of paying attention to this man-woman thing with my kids. I have one girl. We have one girl and one boy. And I find that most days in society, there are things that come up that have to do with their genders.
Well, yeah, it is kind of like a whole big modern
and so from the time
debate, right?
It's just from the time we're tiny, we are even, and I consider myself like modern and progressive and like not trying to influence my kids, but I am. I decorated my son's room in like orange and blue and green, and my daughter's room in pink and purple and blue. And just doing that is probably subtly influencing them towards some gender stereotypes, right?
So here's a quick question that I'm not trying to start a fight.
Okay.
But now, so let's say you grew up in this world that's programming you from birth to like girly stuff. And I'm talking about you specifically, walked up to Pingo, you saw this cute little penguin that's designed to look very cute. Do you think that like your programming had anything to do with you liking the game because you're playing as a cute penguin
No. I don't think that, because like a couple game spots down is Sinistar and there's nothing cute about that game, and I love that game. But what I do think maybe might have something to do with it is that what you're talking about, what you find that women tend to play are simpler rule sets.
Right.
And I wonder if
more
maybe
nuanced games is really how, because back in the 80s you had either games that were like, they were all pretty hard, but you had games that were hard because they were like just unapproachable, difficult to play. And then you had games that were hard because like as you got better at the game, it kept challenging you.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that females tend to go towards those games that are easier to pick up, but that keep challenging you. And I do find that that seems to be the style, but it might be totally unfair because those are also just the most popular games. And it might just be that there's some sort of weird, like, masochistic thing going on with men that decide to play Defender.
Well, I have some thoughts, and I obviously have no idea what it is.
Right. Yeah. Let's be clear. We are not psychologists. We have not studied this. This is all anecdotal and unscientific as it gets. But it is an interesting thing to talk about because I did see that thing where Pingo is listed as number 2. on the games that any operator must get for girls, and I thought it was funny. So here we are.
Well, I would say one thing that I have seen, I have no idea if this is true or not, but I have seen it at least posited that maybe men tend to thrive in like a big competitive environment and women are more collaborative. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it were true, it would make sense why maybe men are more drawn to like the fighting games and things like that are these big community games, and maybe women are drawn to Miss Pac-Man and Pingo, which are like individual games. Like that's something you're really playing with yourself against yourself.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah, there's not, I mean, Pingo, Miss Pac, they're single player at a time. Even if it's a 2-player game,
right.
Only one person is playing at a time. There's no direct competitive aspect to that. And I have learned, or it's long been discussed in the fighting game arena, kind of why girls don't seem to get into it. And a lot of people just said that the communities are so toxic.
I don't know if it's necessarily toxic, but it can be very it doesn't seem like an easy thing to break into when you see a whole bunch of just a whole bunch of men like gathered around stuff and yelling, and they all seem to know what's going on too. So then you'd have to go in and not know what was happening, and that doesn't sound very appealing to me. I don't know if that is because I'm a woman
I will
or
say,
not.
and in large credit to Chris Delp and the Free Play Arcade community group,
Mm-hmm.
We have girls that come to every fighting game tournament that we have, which is awesome.
No, and it is awesome, but even with the hardest of efforts.
This weekend.
Oh, that's so cute.
What are we looking at?
We're looking at, is that her mom?
This is,
A mom and a little
no,
girl?
This
No.
is Kim, one of our random players,
Oh.
helping a little girl learn how to play Street Fighter 2.
Oh, that's so cute.
Well, and we have seen with Chris's kids tournament on Sundays. At that age, it doesn't seem to matter nearly as much.
Kids don't care.
Kids
well,
are
and so this
fearless.
is why I think it's like us as society, we're making people this way. It's not like men or women wouldn't enjoy it. You know, I have a lot of fun playing the fighting games with my son. But what I will say is that it is intimidating when like everyone is so much better than you. That's intimidating. I like to play with my 6-year-old because nobody's gonna like beat me into the floor. I don't know if like psychologically I can handle that.
Well, and that's a problem with fighting game tournaments in general, that people don't want to show up to an event that they know they're going to lose.
Mhm.
But yeah, it
Well,
seems
I wouldn't mind losing, but I would mind like losing and having no ability to even think of what I should do to stop myself from getting my face pounded in.
But yeah, so describe Pingo. What's Pingo about?
Pingo has a cute little penguin, and he's in a field of ice blocks, and I don't really know what are the
He
things that
ruthlessly crushes his enemies.
they're coming
No, I'm
after
just
him.
kidding.
So he moves around ice
It's
blocks. He
very cute
shoots
the whole
ice
time.
blocks and smushes his enemies. And there's a time aspect to it. And they're special blocks, and if you sync all the special blocks up together, something special happens. I've never done that, so I don't know what happens.
So you're not really a hardcore Pingo player. You're just a big fan.
And I'm a hardcore nothing player. I am strongly committed to simply enjoying these games in a casual manner,
Well,
which is great for me. I'm very fulfilled by that.
That as I've become I've had less time for individual games to focus on, and instead most of my time is spent testing, making sure games are working how they're supposed to.
Yeah.
I have tended to, the games that I really like are the games that I can play by myself and improve on slowly over time.
Right, but you can also play fairly quickly.
Right, yeah.
It's a pop by.
I can pick up.
That's why I like Pingo.
I will say that, and this is a totally different topic, it's high scores have become so hard for me as I got into arcades kind of hardcore that I don't even know if I like high scores as much anymore. Because used to, I would show up and there would be a miss pack at the back of a bar. I'd put up a couple 100,000 and feel like a king. I'd get my first place or second place, but I'd feel really good. That was a long game, and that was it. But now, and that was a pretty long game. But now I feel like as I for example, Mr. Do, as I got better and better at Mr. Do, and on slow Mr. Do, I can get 1.6 million points now. But that's an hour and a half of work.
Who has the time?
And that's just to get incrementally better at that game, I have to keep doing those sets. So I have now gravitated to just getting more experience at a bunch of different games that are approachable, easy to pick up, and a game might last 5 to 10 minutes, and that's it. That's for fun, a good game, and that's fun.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just figuring out. Although Super Turbo games last 20 seconds, so maybe that's why it's so popular as a game. Everyone's just all about the speed. So, well, yeah. So we're on the road, guys. We're driving to Arlington. This is the Tech Express, part of 635, controversial part of the highway. They built it to not necessarily reduce traffic on the main part of the highway, but instead to let people pay a lot of money to have an express lane.
And we do.
It's very
We pay
Dallas.
so much
very
money
Dallas
to use
of this. Yeah, I think just today we're going to spend $5 or $6 on this lane, but it is nice.
It
Easy
is
to
nice,
drive
and
on.
it does appear to do something that's really important to us, which is actually buy us a little time,
Right.
which we desperately
Right,
need.
yeah. So, I mean, it looks like 635 is moving okay here, but if you're from the area, you know that 635 is always terrible no matter where, how you leave for
It
it.
took too long to build this thing, though.
It takes too long to build everything.
Well, while we're
Ooh.
talking about
Oh
road
my goodness,
construction,
why am I
which
so
is
cold?
which
I'm
is
so
exciting.
cold.
Well, I wanted to make sure everyone was comfortable, so I made it really cold.
Corey didn't say, but we have Matt and Gabby.
Yeah, so
And Chris
Matt,
Delp in the
Gabby,
back.
and Chris Delp. After we get to Arlington, I think Chris is going to switch to the front seat. So we're just kind of
Then it'll be totally drowned out by road noise.
right, yeah.
It is quite noisy.
Well, you know, I feel like it's probably like the tires that I chose. They probably weren't the most expensive tires, and that's what's causing all this road noise. Or we're going like 80 miles an hour on the pavement. I don't know.
I'm thinking more about this man-woman thing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering
Well, but-
if maybe it's not, okay, so they say specific games, blah, blah, blah. But I think the most special thing about free play is the environment it creates overall, which is not seedy, not gross, somewhere where you would bring lots of women, lots of children, lots of, you know, your mother, whoever you wanted to bring. And maybe the sort of places that are those sort of places that you would bring any of those people are the sort of places that have games like Bingo.
Right. Well, and I will say that, for example, with Mistback or Pingo or Frogger, these games that are traditionally considered kind of the
I don't know, I hate Frogger.
Well-
Sorry, Frogger.
well, and it's not that they're girl games. Like it's not that kind of line that is historically. It's that they're more friendly.
Well, and they're not like fighting den games,
Right.
Because I can see why a fighting den might not be super attractive to really anyone, but obviously it's attractive to some people. I just don't understand it.
The reason I like those games at free play, where a place where you pay a single admission price and then you can play as much as you want for as long as you want. Once you kind of play those, it whets your appetite a little bit.
Yeah.
Then you might venture into like Sinistar or Bubbles, both of which actually do seem like anecdotally seem to be really well loved, but they're less approachable than your packs and everything.
I also wonder if just like typically because of the way our society is, women are less experienced with arcade games and they're more willing to like wander around and pick a game that's not occupied and not popular, and those games tend to be less occupied, and they may or may not know what they're doing and feel like it's a safer space to like figure out what they're doing, so they're not like embarrassed by their lack of skill.
I think so. I think that's probably well. And,
not that there's any reason to be embarrassed,
well, and
but I would feel embarrassed. I played Tommy once on I don't know what game, but it was really embarrassing for me.
well, Tommy.
And I
shows
never
no
want to
mercy.
repeat that performance.
But I think the interesting thing is like, as we're seeing with a lot of situations like this in the world with like darts and stuff, obviously women are just as good as men at these arcade games and can
Right.
be just as good. I mean, like Lauren Featherstone, as an example, smashed a long-standing record and redefined kind of exactly how you play that game. So,
Sharon Stevens has won Pinball Monday.
right, and we've had women win major pinball Monday tournaments, 30 plus entrants and everything. And pinball is really notorious for having these weird like they'll have all the different leagues, but sometimes, and the worst stuff would be where they make you choose. Like you either are in one of the novice leagues or the ranking leagues or the pro leagues, or you're in the women's league. And yeah, I've always thought that was really weird. I think I'm not necessarily against like a ladies league or a women's league, but I hate the idea that if you play in one, you can't play in the others.
That's really hard for me. Like on a fundamental level, I don't really see the need to separate really any group of like men, women, whatever. I mean, experience, sure. But in a situation where somebody's underrepresented, I guess if it encourages people to do it more.
Well, I think the argument has normally been, and it's not a good argument, that the dudes are all jerks. It's kind of like the Street Fighter 2 thing. The pinball
Right.
dudes, the Street Fighter dudes, they can be pretty harsh and just weirdly aggressive.
So what if we made like instead
So that
of the
doesn't happen
women's
in free
league,
play.
it was
though.
like the
I
not
want to be
jerk
clear
league.
here. I'm talking historically. Free play has kind of come in, and our entire goal. And I mean, Chris is basically probably his most important part of his job
Yeah.
is to make sure that all of our leagues, all of our tournaments, all of our events are ultra welcoming to all. And I think that's been a great success.
It
Because
has been.
ultimately-
I know it's hard work, Chris. I know it is.
It's just a passion. Like it is my calling.
He
Chris-
says it's
Chris
his
says
calling.
it's his calling, it's his
and
passion.
I believe that.
And the real thing is, you know, because we design free play and all of our free play locations are built to just like be fun places to be, right?
Yeah.
No matter who you are,
Well, that's
Free-
what I love about it. No matter what you're looking for,
right?
it's there.
So now this is kind of a wow. That was a fun little bump, little rant. So kind of a segue, because I will say, not a single like guy has contacted me to talk about skee ball popping up at our new Fort Worth location. But
Palmer's too busy stealing the
yeah,
ball.
Jason Palmer has mentioned it a bunch, both positively and negatively. It's a love-hate relationship with Jason Palmer and skee ball. But I have had a ton of messages from like females, from women that are like, that was always my game. I'm so happy that it popped up, which I it's just totally anecdotal. I don't know. But speaking of which, what do you think about skee ball at free play?
I haven't had a chance. No, that's not true. I threw a couple balls like before we opened, but I haven't really had a chance to play. And I understand there's been a problem with skee balls going missing.
Yeah. So
So if anyone has solutions for that, we would love to hear them.
there's no solutions. I talked to some operators who have coin play skee balls. They lose their skee balls all the time. So
Yeah.
because at first my head was like, maybe it's the free play aspect of it, which like I feel like they've designed skee balls to really be useless. Like they're the worst.
I mean, they're
balls.
terrible balls.
They-
Like you don't
and-
want to throw into someone. You don't want to catch them. They don't bounce. They're
Right.
heavy and like
Well,
dangerous. I
and
think.
modern skee balls aren't even really wood. They're like this like plasticky wood
Some
type
sort of like
thing.
polymer type.
Right.
thing.
They're especially weighted basically just to be used as skee balls. So
Yeah, they stink.
and you know, people tend to steal anything that comes off. We found
I
so
don't
like
know why though. Then what do they do with all this stuff? Does it wind up in the trash? Do they have like a room full of just like
my
random
theory
debris?
is that there's some operator in town that was like, yes.
So yes, so I said
I'm
we
gonna-
should stamp them with free play.
Right.
Something that says you're an asshole if
Well,
you have
we
this and
we
you're not a
have
free
come
play.
We have come up with it. We can't talk about it too much because who knows who's watching this.
Okay.
With a secret kind of mark on all of our ski
Oh.
balls. And then I'm going to
So
go
we
around
know.
town. And
So
I'm
when
gonna
we take
have
our
fun.
children places, we can see
I'm
if
gonna
they've
test
stolen
it.
our ski balls.
So I guess as a background, I don't know how much I've spoken about skee ball because I had to sit on it a little bit because I wanted it to be somewhat of a surprise.
Mm.
Because other people have done skee ball and other free play arcades have even tried to, free play style arcades
Mhm.
have tried to do skee ball, but it's always been broken 24 hours a day. Like all I've ever received are messages that say, I love skee ball, but no one ever can make it work. Like all of the units are either too expensive or non-functional. And
Mm.
that was kind of why I thought we should dip our toes into it. Now, when I heard that, though, I came up with this idea. And I really don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast before, the skee ball bar.
Yeah.
I think and there are, and we have some friends in Austin and New York who have launched skee ball bars. And I was just watching a weird video, maybe something we'll talk about later, of a skee ball bar trying to open in California. Now, like, I'm really, really into that competitive aspect of skee ball and taking it like kind of seriously and making it like bowling league night style tournaments.
And I've always been very like against this. I
Right.
think it's the silliest idea I've ever heard.
Well,
I mean,
so-
I'm happy if other people are able to make this work, but like my experience with skee ball is it's something that has been in every arcade I've ever been in since I was a kid playing it at Chuck E. Cheese. And you go, you play a game, and then you move on. Like I do not understand how you could support an entire business with just skee ball.
Well, so like, and having played a few skee ball rounds at Free Play Fort Worth, what I really do is I'll play around, even if I'm like trying not to take it seriously.
Mhm.
And next thing I'm gonna be like, man, I bet I could get a higher score. I bet I could shave some points off of like those worst throws, and I bet I could focus and really. And what's really cool is when you're playing like a skee ball tournament, all these strategies start emerging and like which pockets you're going for, which risks you're willing to take, and it gets really intense. Plus, to me, it's like the perfect game to like. It's to me a lot like bowling, but even more approachable because it takes even less to roll the ball down the lane and figure out which pocket it's going to go into.
I don't know.
Um,
I just don't feel the same way about it as you.
So the original pitch for the Dallas Skee Ball Bar, or Dallas Skee Ball Project is what I call it internally, kind of like our Dallas Pinball Project, was that we're going to have 10 skee ball lanes, one of the full-size marquee headers that I actually learned later I couldn't even get because you can't customize them, and no matter what, their headers have the big word tickets and all of that stuff. And skee ball is a ticket game, but I didn't like it. So think about this though, skee ball bar. This is my pitch. 10 skee balls all together, all linked so that you could potentially have like tournaments and stuff. Special cameras with TVs above each skee ball. They give you cool like views into the skee balls rolling up. League nights, maybe a Thursday and a Tuesday or something every week. And then I love this part of it. It has nothing to do with skee ball. 10 new beers every week, and once they're sold out, they're gone. The end. Really small
I don't
play.
think enough people are going to show up to sell out your beer.
Well, I mean, there are successful skee ball bars around the country that do really, really well, and I think now they're allowed to call them skee ball bars. For a while, they weren't allowed to because of the trademark on skee ball.
Oh.
But no, I think it's a really cool idea. But ultimately, what we learned as we were dealing with the Dallas Pinball Project and stuff is that building free plays is just the best thing we do.
It is the best thing we do.
It's the way to go, and free plays to me are more fun than just about any other concept I've ever been in.
Well, and I think we started thinking about the obligations associated with opening a smaller ski bar, and it's not like tremendously less than a full free play,
Right.
but you offer so much more, and it
So
just seemed to be a better plan.
the skee ball bar died. It is currently dead. If anyone wants to do this and wants me to like advise them or give me some equity for advice or something, hit me up, Corey@freeplayinc.com. I still think it's a cool project. I think it could be a success, but when we look at how our time is valuable, it didn't make a lot of sense. So that died, but I had already kind of started sourcing skee balls. And so we had a bunch of skee balls come in, and I had to be like, oh, what are we going to do with them? And we were looking at Fort Worth, and we had started building it out, and it had this really cool cove that it would work for skee balls. So
That is actually the thing I thought was good about it. It does fit really well. So, okay.
So right now at Free Play Fort Worth, skee ball is simultaneously the most hated and most loved game. Like, it's very, very popular, but a lot of people are kind of against it because it's noisy, it's loud, there's stuff banging around, balls disappear. People complain constantly that they can't find that. They think they got shorted a ball or something, which
And you're just like,
Now-
you didn't pay any money for
Well-
your game, just play another one.
the big problem there is skee ball is designed that even if you lose a ball or two,
Right, they keep coming down.
yeah, it'll just
Until you
feed
have
you
your-
until you
yeah.
your 9 balls. So that was really frustrating
Well,
to get.
right. I mean, if you've ever been to an old rundown arcade, sometimes they have like 2 balls in the machine, but you still get to play your full game.
Well, yeah, that's what's really amazing about skee ball is you'll see it at like these outdoor locations where like the entire middle is grooved from all the play,
Yeah.
and yet it's still there and functioning even with 1 ball or 2 balls or 3 balls. And occasionally we'll have a ball jam and stuff, but it's like it's amazing to me how fast people can lose it when they think that something's wrong, which it hasn't been. We've actually had just about 100% uptime. One time we had a ball jam that knocked a skee ball out for a couple of hours, and I got a ton of reviews about that. People move fast. I mean, a couple of hours that a game's down, and we'll hear about it. We had just some really, but the reception of the skee ball has been really exciting, and people are pumped. And I can say right now that skee ball will be present at Free Play Dallas. I think probably just 2 lanes, but maybe 4. I don't know.
Why are you looking at me? Is it my decision?
No. I was trying to get your like opinion on that. What if you think 2 lanes is sufficient?
I
It
don't
seems
know.
to
I
be
think I'd like
handling.
to talk to the people in Fort Worth and see what they think because they have the best experience with it.
Right. It seems to be the 2 seem to be servicing the crowds, and Free Play Fort Worth has had some pretty good crowds so far.
Yeah. I mean, that
seems
is
to
a
be
lot
servicing
of
it.
real estate for the same game.
Right. Well, and I
think variety. I'm like a variety is the spice of life sort of
So what
person.
I was going to kind of use that though is to work into. All right, so skee ball I've always liked. I've been a big skee ball fan, and I've always considered it like a real game, and a game that could belong at any retro arcade. Richardson, it really wasn't in the initial plans, and so the big problem with like Richardson is it just wasn't built at all to have skee ball.
No.
There's no
Not at all.
real place for skee ball. Arlington we've actually talked about. But then we put it at Fort Worth, and we've got it coming to Dallas. So I kind of thought that balanced it pretty
I think
well.
that's good.
But skee ball's always been on this list of games that it basically goes rhythm games, skee ball, basketball, like pop-ish shot style basketball.
Yeah, I know. I kind of am fond of that.
I love it
basketball.
too.
Yeah.
Well, Now, what's really messed up, and I'll get to it in a second, is I love the absolute biggest version of it that they've ever made.
Right, the one that has like the variety. It's not just like the little dinky
Well,
one.
and not only that, when it's at its max height, it's a full NBA style free throw.
Oh man, I don't think I could do that.
Which is but I love it. And then there's it's kind of in the rhythm game, and it's really the one that's been eating me up the most inside, which is Guitar Hero. Because first we'll work through that list. So we've got skee ball. We like skee ball. We're putting it out. We're testing it out. Rhythm games. We've put some of the hand activated rhythm games, like what is it? Cross Beats Rev and Poppin' Music are out right now, and they've been successful. And what's really great is since we put them out, we were always worried about adding one because we thought people were going to all be asking for their specific favorites. But that seems to have really kind of like satiated the demand for those, except for one game. Do you know the game?
Is it Dance
Dance Dance Revolution? So we have 2 Dance Dance Revolutions. They're both of them are in construction. DDR's it hasn't popped up yet, but it is going to show up at Arlington and Dallas.
Whoa, it's so loud though.
We're going to figure it out. We'll figure it out, and you know there are all sorts of problems, and we are going to, reinforce it and everything, and do our best to maintain it. And I think it's going to.
Oh man, I think you're going to get so many complaints. Like you could work on it every day and still get.
Well, I do think our techs will be working on it every day. I think it'll be akin to pinball, but maybe even worse.
I think it's going to be worse
because pinball people, though pinball breaks all the time. They're truly great pinball players. They're truly like hardcore pinball nuts. Mm-hmm. They all kind of know that certain switches might go out occasionally, stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's I think the thing. I think the DDR players seem a little, I don't know.
Well,
I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but they seem a little bit more complainy.
They do seem to complain a lot faster, and we did put a what was relatively great DDR out, and we had some complaints, and then a bunch of people fighting about whether or not that was complaint worthy, and that was just it was a rebuild thing. Not only that, we were replacing switches on the fly, replacing stuff on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more you could have asked for. There was another DDR at the same event that was just
trash
junk.
Which could have been a free play problem, because like that one no one seemed to even care about because free play brought one, and I always hated that idea that we were gonna bring out a DDR, and I was gonna be like, guys, this is a test, it's gonna get destroyed. We're working on which switches are best, because there's DDR, it has its own switches that are good, I think, and there 2 or 3 different companies reproducing them, and then there's a game called Pump It Up that has what are considered slightly better switches. And you have to hack into your harness to install Pump It Up switches, which we have on one of our DDRs, the one that was at, what was it? Not Acon.
Yeah.
That's hard. So that's kind of where we are in DDR. We're still working on it, but it is coming. I thought we'd have it out this year. It doesn't look like it.
There's only a few more days left in the year. I don't think we're going to make it.
Yeah.
Remember we did a podcast about that at Acon, and they showed that switch.
Yeah. So we actually, the artist was just telling me that we have already spoken a little bit about how hard DDR is to operate, and we had a broken switch on the table, and we were like, guys, we're out there like in the trenches replacing this. And I remember it was like ice cold in that building, but I went inside that DDR, started replacing switches and tweaking switches. I came up just dripping with sweat. Like it was intense. It was like, and there's like 50 people all standing around you.
Yeah, it was like a war
just
zone.
Like, and people would just like step on it. Like as I'm trying to fix it, they're like, "Is this okay?" I'm like, "What is happening?"
Why would that be
No,
okay?
of course not.
You think this is going to help it get fixed faster?
It was nuts. So
it was
so
crazy.
DDR is the last of the rhythm, I think, that we really need to figure out before we can call that complete as part of like our arcade journey. And then I think we'll slowly work in more and more rhythm games, but so far it's been successful. All right, so I went skee ball, went rhythm games, and then there's the basketball.
Right.
Or rhythm games and
that
skee ball.
just doesn't seem like it quite jives with what we do.
Well, so my problem is, and I've seen some free play style arcades that have tried to do this, and it feels so kiddie. Like I love those basketball games, but once those basketballs are kind of flying everywhere and it's like bouncing out, it feels like a kid's arcade.
Yes, it does.
And then of course you actually have kids, which kids are allowed in our arcades, and I don't think that there's any our style that doesn't allow kids, for better or worse. But you have kids, you have adults, and you have basketballs all flying around. To me, it takes you out of the vibe. And that was, like you were saying before, that was a concern with DDR. That was a concern with skee ball, because a cool retro arcade doesn't necessarily have these games. So I don't have basketball figured out. I don't know if it's ever gonna happen. I really like
I
it.
don't know.
If I ever have like a bar that has like an overhang that's like outside, that's covered, that has a good shot for like a pop-a shot basketball or something, I could see that happening. Maybe. Okay, and then
What about the last one? What about the one you said we were talking about today?
which one? Guitar Hero?
No, the one oh well, go ahead. But the one that's in your dad's garage.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. So, like 3 or 4 years ago, I bought
I think it was longer than that.
6
If
or
it's in your
7
dad's garage, it has to have
6
been
or
like 5 years ago.
6 or 7 years ago, I bought a boomerang air hockey table, which is one of my favorite variations of air hockey, and it's a little bit more compact, and it's the one where you stand side by side.
You stand side by side, and it's like a little boomerang.
Yeah, I want to get that out. Like I think people would love it.
It's really cool. I'd never seen anything like it
But
before, and I love air hockey.
The reason air hockey's never been at free play is it is so noisy.
It is noisy,
And
it makes people so angry.
Those total clanks, like that sound will just get embedded in your head,
Yeah.
and it will totally be part of like the experience. And that sounds not good. Like I want you to remember like the great '80s music. Well,
maybe somewhere
so
big.
I have an idea for it. I don't want to give it out because if it doesn't happen, people would be really grumpy. And they do make rubber-coated pucks that are weighted so that they weigh the exact same, but in theory they make less noise. So we're gonna test those.
Yeah, but wouldn't everyone just steal the pucks?
Oh,
Steal
then, yeah.
ski balls,
Then
and pucks are way cooler than
And
ski
people are gonna
balls.
steal ski balls. Like I remember
And they don't have
at,
to pay for the
like
game.
skating rinks and stuff. I remember having issues finding the puck because kids would start throwing at each other. Because you get a nice little spin to it. It's like a frisbee.
I disagree. I felt like the puck was actually there a surprising amount of times, considering it wasn't nailed down.
Well, and so here's what might be a problem with these like noise reducing pucks.
Mm-hmm.
Like a good, authentic, solid air hockey puck
Mm-hmm.
is like $4. A noise reducing puck is like $10 or $11. You might be able to find it for like 8 in a 2-pack, so it's like 16 for 2 or something like that.
Gosh.
But yeah, it adds up fast,
That
especially if
does
they're
not
disappearing.
sound-
Well, and
Yeah.
the other thing I have a problem with is like, if, for example, if someone did actually steal every skee ball or did steal every puck, then the game's not going to work, and people are going to complain that there's a broken game. And you know how much I hate broken games.
I wonder if air hockey's popular enough that no one could steal it because somebody's always waiting for a game.
Yeah, well, I have an idea. I think it could happen faster than you'd think, or slower. Who knows?
Mm.
It really could. It's going to be like a whim. Like I'm going to be like the first week of January, which today is a couple days before Christmas, 2 days before Christmas. This is crazy. So I do have a feeling that like in the first couple weeks of January, I could be like, I know what we're doing today. We're putting out air hockey, but we'll see.
Gosh, what a start to a new year.
Right. And then there's the Guitar Hero. It's the hardest. It's the hardest arcade that I've ever had to like process, and I'm still so conflicted on it.
I don't know. I did not.
It's a raw thrills game, and you're not as familiar with how
I just
much
didn't get pulled into it.
I loathe raw thrills. I hate
I mean, I've heard you
raw
talk
thrills.
about it before.
I feel like that they have such a great position in the arcade industry, and they use it just for evil, which is just crushing. So
I don't think we should support that then.
well,
But I'm like a
then they made
purist.
game-
I'm like,
Then they made a game called Guitar Hero, which is it has a decent soundtrack. It's a true arcade game, but
wait. So how do you play it? Do you get a guitar?
yeah,
Is it like
you
the
have
one
like
you
the
play
little
at
guitar.
home?
Yeah.
Back in
It's
the day
like
when it was
that. They give you
popular?
like a commercial style guitar, but
Okay.
it has one of the worst soundtracks available for it.
So it's unpleasant to listen to, and made by
I guess it depends if
someone
you.
that's evil.
Well, it doesn't. The problem is it doesn't play as well as basically any of the home versions that have been released.
What?
since.
It's not even as good as the home version,
Right.
Which I think I didn't really play very much, but people liked it, so I bet it was pretty good.
Well, I mean, like so, and yeah, so that's our big thing.
Then wouldn't everyone that came be like, "Oh, this is kind of disappointing"?
No, I mean that's the complicated thing is it does well. On route, you can charge $1 a game. It's a successful game. People generally play it and generally rate it okay. But it's so weird to me because like we're not built on selling our customers like a worse version of something that they can just go home and play.
Right.
Which, and one of the interesting topics that I haven't explored much, and we're getting close to Arlington, so we won't be able to dig into it, is that tough balance between following your customers, like noticing what they seem to play and wanting to deliver that versus sticking true to your vision. And it kind of gets to like, we have some games that are just like they're so nostalgic for people that they're going to have a fun time anyways, but we want to get them hooked on those games and explore like the deeper cuts in our collection, right? And I think that that's really important that you have deeper cuts, and it's not just, you know, the same 20 or 30 games at each arcade and that's all you have. So
Boring.
well, I mean, I think the truth is if you have a free play style arcade and you followed your customers hardcore, you'd end up with like a broken dance game, skee ball, and like a Guitar Hero.
Well, I think
and
you
maybe a
can't
couple
please
others.
Everyone, no matter what, you'd be listening to some of them, but not others. Like that's why I think you have to balance. You have to see what you think about it. I think sometimes your customers are right, and you should like shift a little bit that way. But you always have to, you know, do it with thoughtfulness and care, and try to balance all the interests there are at play.
And I feel like our job is really to help people find new stuff that they love, not just give them exactly what they already know they like, but I feel like part of the great thing about having 4 arcades in one Metroplex and 400 plus games out on the floor is you can really kind of take your time to enjoy it. So
I agree.
we're pulling up to Free Play Arlington. This was the site of last Christmas, still decorated pretty well. We're gonna hop in, and I think we're gonna record some footage inside, some really quick, like a super fast walkthrough that we cut all the locations together for a like massive walkthrough, so you can see every game we have on the floor 2 days before Christmas. But for now, that ends this episode of the Free Play Arcade podcast. Make sure you click subscribe. I'll try not to wreck the car, and we'll be back soon. Thanks, guys.
Merry Christmas.